Hey y'all, welcome back. Today I wanted to take you through what feels like it could easily be the most groundbreaking piece of investigative journalism of like the last decade. And I want to be clear, I haven't actually seen this yet. I've just, seen a quote here or there. So you're going to get my live reaction to whatever nonsense this guy's got going on. And from everything I've read about what we're about to watch, I can't think of a more important story to really hone in on as we're having these larger conversations about climate change initiatives than this oil lobbyist saying the quiet part out loud. Now, why is this so important, you might be asking? Well, it just so happens time and time again we keep getting these large-scale examples of what's to come, like 100 people dead in Oregon or 130 people dead in Vancouver alone as a result of a recent heat wave, which of course isn't even to mention the long-standing reported issues of like crops being interrupted by climate change and like the reservoirs in the Southwest being depleted. This is just yet another lovely, heartwarming example of all that. Oh yeah, and the ocean's on fire, I keep forgetting that. So let's take a few minutes to hear what this oil lobbyist has to say, in their own words, about Exxon Mobil. Now of course I'll probably cut around a little bit, so if you want to see the whole interview, I suggest you go watch it yourself. I'll put the link down at the dibbly-doo. But yeah, let's friggin' get into it.
Did we aggressively fight against some of the science?
Yeah.
Yes. Did we join?
No remorse, just upfront about it. But what else would I expect? You kind of have to remove remorse from your vocabulary to be in this position.
Did we join some of these shadow groups to work against some of the early efforts? Yes, that's true.
Okay.
But there's nothing illegal about that.
Yeah.
We were looking out for our investments. We were looking out for our shareholders.
Interesting point, that. So in other words, the actions taken to disregard the scientific consensus were very specifically in defense of shareholders, aka in defense of their company profits, which, might sound obvious when you say it out loud, but I just can't imagine, it's right here in front of me. I can't believe that this guy's just openly admitting it. Hey folks, Editing Piley here. My mic was acting all screwy when I was recording this section the first time around, so I figured I would re-record and have good audio because I think this next bit is pretty important. As Nathan J. Robinson pointed out on Twitter the other day, the lobbyist here just kind of admits that the profit-driven operating functions of a company can quickly become at odds with, the preservation of the world. Like his defense that we were looking out for our shareholders feels like one that he's confident with. That he can go to bed at night knowing that everything he's done to kind of lobby against climate change was in service of his company's bottom line, and therefore, in the ideal of many a capitalist, like, for example, Milton Friedman, he was fulfilling his sole social responsibility as a business person to increase his business's profits. So maybe going forward, we shouldn't entrust the health of our planet existing to these multinational corporations whose loyalty is to themselves, self-admittedly of course, above the wellness of the people that actually have to live on this place. Just a thought, of course. Anyways, back to the video. And we're only a minute and a half in, but great investigative journalism to give us this behind-the-scenes look at how these conversations happen. Because they would deny it, as I'm pretty sure the CEO already has, publicly, but privately. Behind closed doors is where you get the honesty.
First, the targets. Congressmen are fish. Exxon is the fisherman.
When you have an opportunity to talk to a member of Congress, I liken it to fishing, right? You have.
Oh, that wasn't just an example the announcer was using. Holy shit. Oh my God. He talks about senators like it's fishing. Jesus Christ.
You have bait, you throw that bait out, it's all these opportunities that you use, and to use the fishing analogy again, just to kind of reel them in, because they're a captive audience. They know they need you.
Well, there you have it, folks. He's doing the commentary for me. He's saying the quiet part so out loudly. I'm at a loss for words, let me tell you.
You want to be able to go to the chief. And so the chief knows you, that you can go to the chief and say, look, we've got this issue. We need Congressman so-and-so to be able to either introduce this bill. We need him to make a floor statement. We need him to send a letter. Yeah. You name it. We've asked for everything.
I bet we're really glad about that whole Citizens United money in politics thing, huh?
The biggest catch, according to Mr. Coy, it's the conservative Democrat Senator Joe Manchin, who famously shot President Obama's cap-and-trade climate bill.
And I'll take dead aim at the cap-and-trade bill.
Joe Manchin, I talk to his office every week. He is the kingmaker.
It's a sign that you're in it for the wrong reasons, Joe Manchin.
Keith McCoy names 10 other senators as crucial to Exxon Mobil. Senators Mark Kelly, Chris Coons, Shelley Moore Capito, Kirsten Sinema, John Tester, Maggie Hassan, John Barrasso, Steve Daines, John Cornyn, and Marco Rubio.
Not a name on this list surprises me, but it's convenient of him. I gotta thank the lobbyist here, giving us such a convenient list of people to primary or ratio on Twitter, whichever punishment you personally deem worse.
Just last week, as America continues to suffer heat waves described as apocalyptic and linked to the current climate crisis, President Biden fought to get Congress to pass his $2 trillion showpiece law linking jobs and infrastructure to massive spending to combat climate change.
It's important to note, though, the long-heralded, glorious, bipartisan agreement, the both sides working together, basically cut all of the climate change shit. And while it's still possible that Democrats will, through the reconciliation process, pass a bigger bill that does tackle climate change more, and as plenty of people have pointed out, even his pie-in-the-sky package wasn't going to be enough. But it's just a shame that in order to get the 10 bipartisan votes necessary to make useful things happen with the rules of the Senate, you have to cut the climate infrastructure out of your infrastructure bill. But of course, as the lobbyist is talking about here, it's not even really fair to just criticize the fact that it takes, 10 Republican votes and that they're holding things back, because the reality is there's like 5 to 10 Democrat votes who are getting in the way as well of doing what is necessary, who are either, if you want to, I guess, take the good faith approach, they're trying to triangulate to come up with a more reasonable approach. Or if you take the words this man is saying at their word, it's because they're bought and paid for.
Forget that, it lobbied. Stick to roads and bridges.
So that's a completely different conversation. When you start to stick to roads and bridges, and instead of a $2 trillion bill, it's an $800 billion bill, if you lower that threshold, you stick to highways and bridges, then a lot of the negative stuff starts to come out.
Negative stuff that impacts his shareholders, mind you. Obviously, they're not negatives for the people. It is good to be moving away from climate change, but you can see we're coming to a crossroads here. These things are butting heads. You've got the needs of the people and the needs of the shareholders, and clearly, he is here to try to, as he's literally talking about rhetoric and how to, battle in the court of public opinion here. He's talking about how to make sure that his butting head of his shareholders' interests wins out against that which would, help the world not die, but would hurt his bottom line a little bit. Oh, can we have a moment of silence for Exxon's bottom line?
For example, it says publicly it supports a carbon tax. Keith McCoy says privately that's just PR.
Nobody is going to propose a tax on all Americans. And the cynical side of me says, yeah, we kind of know that. But it gives us a talking point. that we can say, well, what is Exxon Mobil for? Well, we're for a carbon tax.
Oh, okay. I really gotta go back to something I said at the jump here. I didn't think this would be as groundbreaking as it is. He's not even saying the quiet part out loud. He's saying the quiet part through a fucking megaphone. And to be clear, the general idea here isn't new news. Like, there have been email leaks before this of oil companies talking about climate change privately and spreading disinformation publicly.
You're not going to be able to just switch to battery-operated vehicles or wind for your electricity. And just having that conversation around why that's not possible in the next 10 years is critically important to the work that we do.
You hear that, folks? It's all bullshit. Some of these shareholders and CEO types are literally going to die before they ever have to see the effects of what they're lobbying for. But that is irrelevant because, as he just mentioned there, notice how he didn't say in that moment that he disagrees with the harm that's going to come from climate change in the next few years. He just said, all he was saying was, it's a convenient talking point to bring up how difficult the transition will be. Again, he doesn't think he's being recorded here. He has no reason to, if he earnestly believed climate change was fake, say that. Like, that could just have been this whole conversation if that was what he really believed. But crucially, he doesn't, because it's not important to his work that he doesn't believe in climate change. It's just important that he stops good things from happening. So yeah, that was one of the more depressing pieces of content I've ever had to watch. Not because it, gave me a new idea like, I never thought that businesses might lobby before. I think it really just showed how powerful these messages are, how powerful the rhetoric is, and how entrenched they are in the US Congress. Like the fact that he was able to just list senators by name, and the fact that he mentions talking to Joe Manchin once a week, just goes to show that any good things to come out of the next few years, as we crucially need to start preparing for this, are going to be fought to the bitter end, and emphasis on bitter there, because it's going to be awful for us, the normal people that have to live in a burning world. But I think another thing that depresses me about this, and this isn't about the video itself, but just looking at the coverage about this story, the most viewed thing outside of the original Channel 4 news clip, it's just over 125,000 views from MSNBC, and then the rest, it's just, alternative media, which, is fine, is good. But the extent to which this, again, extremely groundbreaking piece of news clearly has to get buried, like, it's been a week, you'd think it'd get more traction than this, is just even more depressing. And let's just take a quick second to see if, the people at the highest echelons of power in this country are even mentioning this. Surprise, surprise, despite trying to act like he's a big ol' fan of stopping climate change, Joe Biden literally has not tweeted about Exxon Mobil. There have been other moments in his tenure so far where he's called out specific policies or, that sort of thing, whether it's on Twitter or, in a press conference. He hasn't talked about this once, from what I can find. And neither has Harris, but, I guess that shouldn't be surprising considering her approach to charging Exxon Mobil previously when she was a senator. Or maybe this is when she was, I think that was when she was Attorney General. My bad. So as we're wrapping up, you might be asking yourself, well, okay, where do we go from here, Piley? And to that I say, like, again, what really strikes me about this clip is just the fact that it kind of feels inevitable, like the guy clearly knows what he's talking about. The PR campaigns he's talking about are clearly effective. And as the video brings up, again, as I said a moment ago, their lobbying worked. One of the bigger moments here of recent memory for climate action got nerfed in the negotiation process. And now this thing that could have, brought billions more toward competitive industries to Exxon Mobil and put even harsher limitations on Exxon Mobil, is just gone. Will it be in the next one? I don't know. Who knows? And normally in these videos, I try to find a way to kind of talk about where we go from here, what kind of steps we can take. I especially, try to reframe my brain to think more often in terms of like community mutual aid approaches as opposed to just focusing on, like federal elections and all that. But the climate crisis evidenced by this awful heat wave we just had is kind of a problem that goes against like mutual aid. Like, sure, can you try to have plans with like your neighbors or in your building about like, I don't know, organizing who gets the fans and the AC units first, if you want to prioritize, your grandmas and grandpas in the area. Plans like that might save some lives, but we've had 20 plus years of just recycle and just don't use plastic straws, bro, and we're here. It hasn't done anything. So like, I just at the moment can't think of any other option than to say, well, I guess we just need to put a lot of pressure on like, God bless the Sunrise Movement for going out and protesting at the White House, making sure that people understand how big the issue is and, trying to make change happen. I just don't really see any solutions other than, that line of attack because, like, how do you mutual aid your way around the oil industry just sucking us dry until, well, that sounds kinky. I mean, further plummeting us into hellscape, literal warm hellscape. So yeah, I wish I had like a huff of copium to provide you with. But at the moment, I've been overstimulating myself with my doomer dietary pills this week. I'm sorry, folks. It's just shit just sucks, I think the quicker we take a note from that character in Doctor Strangelove who rides down on the yeehawing all the way to the end, I think the quicker we can learn to accept. But yeah, that's all for today, folks. Let's turn it on over to the same outro from last time, because I don't want to record a new one. Be sure to toss me a like and subscribe down below. But if you really want to help me out, you can join me over on Patreon. Patrons get access to exclusive behind-the-scenes content, like early versions of every video, and exclusive Patreon-only videos. Plus, if you join the Piley Benton's Biggest Boys tier, you get your name read off at the end of every video, which I am about to do once I pull up the names. Zoth, Sean Locke, Revo Pregame, Nillik Elites, Floof Pants, and Cameron Fordo. So if you want to hear your lovely name read off at the end of every video, be sure to join me on this specific tier. Thanks much, everyone, and I'll see you next time.